Greetings in the name of Yahuwah and his son Yahusha HaMashiach. My name is Malak Shalomo, and I'm going to break down a Bitcoin trade I'm in right now. It's a live trade, and I'm going to break down my process, break down the money zone, break down the central floor pivots, and break down the Camarilla pivots, and how I use them in conjunction with price action and the context of the trend. All right, so starting off with the context of the trend here, we have a downtrend. Prices moving down from like a broken upward movement or a broken upward trend. So we had a breakdown and prices moving down and also retesting. Let me just, right, so we had a breakdown here. We had a retest, pullback, consolidated, had a big breakdown again, moved sideways, then we broke out, we pulled back a little bit out of that structure, and then we pulled up, broke above that structure, auctioned again, went sideways, right, pushed up again, breaking out of this consolidation area. And let me change the color on this here. 1 second. Right, so after this breakdown right here, we moved sideways, we auctioned, we broke down from the auction, found support, pushed above the auction, created its own auction right here, moving sideways, broke out of that auction, headed up, pull back, retest the breakout level, pushed up again, and now we're retesting the level again, right, the breakout level. So let me show some levels on that. So roughly I would say at my stop loss here, which is 23,300, that's roughly the breakout level of the second auction right here. Let me just highlight that. Right, so we have two auctions, right? This is the breakout auction. This was the support auction, right? We created a range kind of price action right here because it's like a bigger movements, more volatile. So it's a wider auction, but it's retesting this second auction here from the breakout from the support auction. This is the second auction right here where we broke out, broke above that auction as well, and we're retesting it, right? So it's setting up, to me, it's setting up like a nice little recovery and a reversal, right? So we're getting a nice support area right here, a nice auction right here, consolidation or accumulation phase where we could break above now, right, and head back up to these levels. This high volume level here, this auction, we could test that area. That's let's see, that would be around, the high of that would be like 24,100, right? The low of that would be somewhere, well, we already tested the low, as you can see here. Let me just draw that. Right, so this is the low of that auction right there. So we actually went up into that and we tested that, so we're just testing below, right, from where we break out from, or broke out from, my bad. So let's see here. So that's the context of the trend right now. We're in a reversal accumulation mode. We're retesting the breakout, right? So it's reversing from a downtrend. So I'm looking for longs in this situation. So looking at the money zone here, let me just make this a little bigger. So the money zone is like a mini market profile where it shows the value area high, the value area low, and the POC level, right? So let me just highlight that. So this is the value area low, that white line, This purple line is the value area high, and this central two lines right here, that's the POC level. The reddish pinkish one is the upper POC, and the green one is the lower POC, right? So that's basically the POC level, the point of control, right? So looking at the 2-day relationship, and the 2-day relationship means like you're looking at the relationship or the setup from yesterday, and you're looking at the setup today, right? So this is the current session right here, and we're looking at the past session. So with the value area low now being just below yesterday's value area high, and today's value area high is higher than yesterday's value area high, it's an overlapping higher value relationship, which is a thesis where it's suggesting that price is moderately bullish, right? So in these setups here, you're looking for buys. Depending on where price action is, you're looking for buys at this level above value area low or at value area low. If price comes to this level, you're looking for reversals here in the POC level, or like where price is right now at the value area high, we're retesting that level, so looking for buys at that level. So let's see here. So I have something, as you see, like here, I have something marked the golden pivot zone, right? So that's where the central floor pivot lines up with, let's see, let me turn that on a little bit. That's the central floor pivots. And let's see here, yesterday, 1 second, let me just... Right, so yesterday that was actually the Camarilla S3, which was lining up with the money zone POC level, so I put that as a golden pivot zone. Now, actually, in theory, the golden pivot zone is supposed to be, let's see here, let me show you something. Let me pull some back here. Right, so I actually had it off, right? So let me just explain what this is, right? With the actual central floor pivots being on, right? So this blue line right here, that's the pivot level of the central floor pivots. And now it's coinciding with the POC level of the money zone, right? The upper POC level, right? And this is also Camarilla S3. So with all these levels here lining up with the pivot level, it's in the same kind of range. We call that a golden pivot zone, and that's a, depending on where price is, it creates heavy support or heavy resistance. So yesterday this was a support area and price never even really touched it, right? So price came like, let's see, price came down to 23,059, and the pivot level was at approximately 23,031.96, right? So it didn't interact with it at all. It found support above that level. So it was a deterrent for price to come back to this level because buyers front run this area, right? So anyway, getting back to current price action, right? So I actually call this one a silver pivot zone because, let's see here, let me take this off. I don't want to see the Camarillas on this. I have separate indicator for Camarillas, right? So This is the Camarilla S3, that green line right there. Right, let me just see if I could point that out. Camarilla S3 is at 23,381.38, and that's that green line right there. Right now, that bottom, this is the bottom pivot zone, the bottom central pivot zone. This green line, this darker green line right here, and this here purple line is the value area high of the money zone. So this this area here, this cluster of pivot levels does not have the pivot zone in it. So it's technically not a golden pivot zone, right? So since it has the Camarilla and the value area high in it with a bottom central pivot, right? I'm going to call this one a silver pivot zone, right? So it'll be like a little less powerful than the golden pivot zone because it doesn't have the pivot level in it, but it's still, very prevalent because it has the Camarilla S3 and the value area high, right? So let me just demonstrate here what the Camarilla setup is at the moment. Take off all these other indicators, right? So make this a little smaller. Right, so this here is yesterday's Camarilla S3, and it was approximately 23,020.85, and now Camarilla S3 is up here at 23,381.38, right? So it's a higher Camarilla S3, and Camarilla S3 today is now higher than yesterday's Camarilla R3, making it a higher value relationship, right? So again, with a higher value relationship in the Camarillas, this is looking for buys at Camarilla S3, which is also lining up with the money zone value area high, where we're looking for buys at that level. This is all correlating, right? So we're looking for buys at this level here. So that's why I entered at this level, this silver pivot zone, right? So I'm looking for a buy here, which I already took the buy, and I'm looking to get to Camarilla R3, right? Because it's a higher value relationship. It's bullish, and it's supposed to be looking for higher price levels or higher auction, right? So with this retest of a breakout level, of this level right here in this auction, and that was actually just underneath yesterday's Camarilla R3, and we got the breakout, right? Before the session closed at 7 p.m., we got the breakout right here. Right, so the breakout was right here. Broke above after consolidating underneath, testing it, pulling back. Got the buyers, shot out, pushed above it. Pushed above Camarilla R4 as well, which is that level right there. Came back, retested it basically just above Camarilla R3, and closed up with a bullish sentiment, right? So now we're retesting this level here on Camarilla S3, which is now in a higher value relationship, and that's supposed to be support. So that's my strategy, where I'm following the thesis of the Camarilla pivots, the money zone pivots, and they all lining up, right? So I know sometimes some people look at the chart and they think it's a lot going on and stuff, but it's basically just levels, right? It's just levels that it's a forward indicator, and when it calculates like price action and the market profile, and the Camarilla calculates like price action and stuff like that, you get these levels here and they all correlate. Now all of these are different calculations that are correlating around this area for a buy, right? So in the game of trading, you're looking for probabilities, and this is a high probability area of having a nice retest reversal, right? Where you see, in the context of the whole trend right now, this is basically a retest of a breakout level. Right, so this is a breakout level right here. Breaking out from yesterday's Camarilla R3, and now we're basically retesting that zone. Right, so in a context of a trend, we're looking to create a higher low right here. Right, so if we create the support here, we're getting a nice higher low for a further move up to Camarilla R3. Right, so you see it pull back from my entry level here. My entry level was 23,416. I believe that's the entry level. Let me just widen this a little bit. Yes, it is. Right, so we pulled back, we retested this area, we tested this bottom central pivot. Right, so we found a rejection here at the pivot level. We pulled back, tested this bottom central pivot. Now we're testing this Camarilla S3 for support as well. We even came down, we touched the value area high, right? Found support above the value area high. So this is basically testing all of these levels within the silver pivot zone, right? Got the value area high test, got the bottom central pivot test, came back up, found rejection here at the pivot level. So we came back and we're testing bottom central pivot again, and now we're testing Camarilla S3, right? So we'll see what it'll do, like overnight. It could also just kind of consolidate and bounce between these levels, or just stay within the central pivot range, you know, which is this is the top central pivot right here. That's at 23,494.76. So we could even auction in between this level overnight, and who knows what it'll do from there. You know, it could always come back, and like this is the money zone POC area, it could always come back to that level. It'll stop me out and basically really come back straight into this level right here where it broke out from, or it could just keep going, you know. So there's always kind of like three scenarios in a trade. It could either go bullish, it could go bearish, or it could just go sideways. So either one of those could happen today or overnight. And I'm looking for kind of like a breakout of this level here, or with regaining break-even status on this trade, finding a nice higher low. I think I'm gonna add one more to this. What's going on here with this? We are doing some brief daily maintenance. Paper trading will be back really soon. Thanks for your patience. Oh man, they're messing up my entry. Alright, so I was actually looking into Bybit to start live trading probably in a couple of weeks. So all this is like practicing my strategy and stuff like that. And like, even though it's paper trading, I really take this seriously. Like I don't just take crazy trades. I'm really practicing my strategy and stuff like that. So I'll probably open a account on Bybit. I heard some really good things about Bybit, and I'll see how that goes probably in a couple of weeks. But I'm just trying to maintain the discipline of trading cryptocurrency, because sometimes it gets volatile, right? So you have to have your stop in the proper place and stuff like that. So let me just switch over here because I was also looking at a Bookmap for some entries. Let's see here. Right, so this was the beginning of the session here at 1900 hours, that's 7 p.m. So we had a little pullback, right? So a continuation from this pop-up right here. We popped up to like what, roughly 23,590. We pulled back all the way here to roughly 23,431. And we kind of just, bounced around this kind of POC level right here. That's the trades counter POC. And this purple line here, or pinkish line, is the session value POC. So we're kind of rotating around that until we got to current price action here. And let's see where I entered this trade. What time was it? It was 1 o'clock, right? So right, so you can see from 12 o'clock here, we started going underneath this POC, the POC levels, and we had this auction right here, and we had the breakdown, right? So at this breakdown level here, I'm looking for a retest. Let's see. Not retest, but I'm looking for around this area. You see that I have the value area high, I have the Camarilla S3 and the pivot, the bottom central pivot, right? So I have these levels. I put them in on notes on Bookmap, so I could actually see it right here. Like when I'm looking at Bookmap, I don't have to look at the chart or glance back over at the chart on TradingView. I have everything lined up right here. So looking for a reversal pattern here, and let's see get a closer view of what actually happened. So it came down into this heavy liquidity right here. Let's widen this up a little bit. Right, so the sellers here came down. We had sellers, and then we just had a flurry of buying. No sellers really coming up to take on like the buyers as they or maybe too this was short covering as well with reversal buyers, because just like I'm looking at these levels, other participants are looking at these levels as well. And this was also like a 4-hour on my volume profile. This was a high volume node, so you see these other players here knew that as well, so they put their liquidity here on the bid, right? So that supported price. Buyers started coming in heavy. Well, I wouldn't say actually heavy. I would say that they were just more aggressive than the sellers, right? Because it's not really big bubbles. So had this auction here around 23,400. After this reversal pattern, they pulled on the book here. I don't know why they did this though. Maybe they thought like price was just gonna run away, but then when they saw, so I actually know why they did it. So they probably thought price was just gonna go, and there's no need to keep the liquidity in the book down here for support at 23,330. So when the price auctioned around here, and we had some sellers come back in, and price started creeping back lower to like 23,360, retesting this value area high level, they jumped back in the book, right? So when we had this breakdown, they came back in the book here at like 1257, right? Suspecting that maybe price might want to come back and test this level, so they came back into support price. Price never broke the value area high really, and started creeping up again. So I took my entry at 1 o'clock. So this was basically my entry here. So when we found support at value area high, pushed up a little bit, right, and we have the retest. So that's my entry on the retest, and that's how I use Bookmap for like getting deep into like price action, the little intricacies and stuff like that. So you can see the buyers coming in here after the retest. The buyers are taking back control. We still have sellers and stuff, but buyers are really stepping in here and taking back control of the price action. And there's also opposite players here trying to cap down this this price action from breaking out. So they're stepping in on the ask, and they're trying to keep price down. So you know, price was capped there a little bit, but players are stepping in here on the opposite side to keep price from coming down to this heavy liquidity right here at 23,330. So they came in here at roughly 23,350. They held support, so they're defending this value area high level. Came up to this pivot level right here, had this little exhaustion. So you see we had no buyers coming in here at this pivot level, so it started to auction lower. Had some big sellers try to come in, push price down, and they did really push price down a little bit. Basically came back to this value area high level. See, the buyers are coming back in there. As soon as we touch value area high level, they're coming back in. Stepped in here again at 23,380, which is Camarilla S3. So remember, just a few minutes ago I was talking about how it's testing these levels. So you can see it right here on the Bookmap as well. Right, and now we're at current price action. We're above Camarilla S3 and just below the pivot level at 23,430. So I gotta look out for this this liquidity right here though, because if price action is not getting the buyers to push above the pivot level, it's gonna come back here and grab this liquidity, and you know, it's just market makers coming back to where price action wants to trade, you know, where they could get the most exchange of hands. So if these guys are sitting here as support, they're gonna test that support, you know, to have transactions go off. And now we have this big selling coming in here, so we might probably come back and test this area again. And this is what will probably cause the auctioning to happen in like a consolidation kind of format, right? So we have this sideways movement here until something happens, like it breaks out or breaks down, whether it comes back to this money zone POC area or it breaks out to the Camarilla R3 level. So yeah, that's my thought process on how I evaluate my indicators, which is the money zone, the central floor pivots, and the Camarilla pivots, right? And I evaluate the trend, see where we're at, where we're supposed to retest. Does it line up with my indicators? And yes, it's lining up with my indicators. I just named this the silver pivot zone just a couple hours ago while I was looking at the chart, actually just before I got into this trade. And yeah, it's not as powerful as the golden pivot zone because this central pivot here is not in play with these guys here. It's close, but it's not as close as these guys are to each other, the value area high, the bottom central pivot, and the Camarilla S3. So I just called it something else, not the golden pivot zone. So, this makes sense. Silver pivot zone is the next best thing. So I actually have one called the copper pivot zone. So I'm probably gonna have that. Let's see, maybe with just like a Camarilla pivot and a money zone pivot, like no bottom central pivot or no central floor pivots involved. I'll call that one like the copper pivot zone. Yeah, so that's my thought process, that's my strategy, and we'll see if it works out. All right, y'all, it's Malak Shalomo, and y'all trade safe and stay blessed. I hope y'all enjoyed this little breakdown, this little live trade, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Tomorrow we trade in futures, so look out for the recap tomorrow. All right, y'all, trade safe and stay blessed.